Injuries are a sad and unfortunate inevitability of professional wrestling. It doesn't matter what style you work, it doesn't matter where you work. Eventually, if you do this thing for long enough, you're probably going to end up on the shelf at some point. It doesn't need to be some big, impactful, sudden ACL tear. It doesn't need to have come from some crazy bump or a spot gone wrong and suddenly you're on the shelf for a year out of nowhere. Sometimes it can simply be the slow, almost gentle accumulation of wear and tear over the years, of bump after bump after bump, of shot after shot after shot, of working every single night on the road, of traveling 12 hours after you've fulfilled a date and not really giving the body enough time to recover from the accumulated wear and tear. Every wrestler gets injured, doesn't matter what company you work for or what style you are performing. It's gonna happen eventually. Now, I imagine the vast majority of pro wrestlers who step into this game accept that, right? You come in knowing that this is an inherently dangerous sport. Your body is probably going to scream at you one morning and say, "Hey chief, I need a break," and force you into a spell of time off that must be extremely frustrating because it's something out with your control that is preventing you from doing the thing that you love. And currently in AEW, there's a bunch of injuries to very high profile names. Now, we're going to go through them here, but if you were to just make a list of these names, you might say that this constitutes something of an injury crisis. At least 3 of these are some of the biggest names in the entire company that the AEW cannot call on full time, at least for now. However, I'm here to make the argument that you could use the word crisis if you want. I wouldn't argue with you, but from this actually stems a massive opportunity for the company to elevate some people who have been doing elevation for a long, long time. Let's have a look at some of these wounded warriors first of all. I think the most obvious place to start with is Will Ospreay, who appears to be heading for some significant time off after Forbidden Door, where of course his babyface team beat the Death Riders, Gabe Kidd and the Young Bucks in the Lights Out Steel cage match. Ospreay has a couple of herniated discs in his back. He did an interview with CBS before Forbidden Door where he said that if he thought about it too much, he might cry. Such is the impact that this has had on him. He said on Dynamite this week, last week, that he wasn't clear to compete. I mean, he was clear to compete. That came out afterwards. But, you emphasize things for dramatic effect. Insinuating that he might need surgery and talking about how the type of surgery he needs is one that wrestlers don't always come back the same from. PW Insider and the Wrestling Observer have both since reported that Ospreay does need surgery and he's going to be out for a long time. 1 year plus could be the timescale for this. Swerve Strickland is another one. He revealed last week that he has been working with a torn meniscus since 2019, just wrestling through it, not getting the surgery. At Forbidden Door, he lost to Kazuchika Okada. The knee was a factor in the match. It's what caused him to lose the match. And afterwards, they did what looked like a write-off angle where Swerve's knee was destroyed. It was between the steps and the post. Okada had a chair. They beat him down. They worked some heat into a real-life situation. Fightful reporting on this. The AEW have been preparing for the possibility of Swerve being gone for several months after Forbidden Door. And Kenny Omega is another guy we simply must talk about in this context because while he is back in AEW and he's wrestling, he is much reduced from what he was in terms of his schedule. He's only wrestled 11 times this year, which feels like a gift, honestly, given the health and injury problems. It's just good that he is back and able to work at all, given his trouble with every injury under the sun and vertigo and a bunch of other worrying conditions and bits and pieces. Diverticulitis, of course. But he is on a much reduced schedule as a consequence of the impact on his body. Now, we are talking about 3 of the top 4 men's baby faces here, right? In AEW. The big names, main eventers, headlining names. Hangman Page being the other part of this collection when it comes to the top baby faces. But the injury bug, I guess. It's not a bug. We need a better word than that. But there are things elsewhere on the card as well. I mean, Bryan Danielson is no longer a wrestler in AEW. He might work a couple of matches again someday, but he'll never be full-time again. Adam Cole taking some time out. His concussion issues are well known. Orange Cassidy's still on the shelf, and people like Keith Lee as well. We've not seen Keith Lee in ages. Hope he's doing okay. Hope the big man's doing well. But there's a lot of injured fan favorites on this roster, and yeah, that's not ideal, right? When you're trying to sell tickets and draw TV ratings and sell merch and run a business, having some of your biggest assets on the shelf is a huge, huge disadvantage. And we wish all of these people well, of course, in their recoveries, especially Ospreay, because his neck injury sounds utterly scary. So, best wishes to everybody. Hope they're able to come back in whatever capacity their health allows them to. If they can get back to their old levels, fantastic, brilliant. If they can't, we'll take what we can get, because ultimately this is a tough sport, and it does impact people in very, very heavy ways. So best wishes to all of those. I don't think, however, this needs to be a complete crisis for AEW. I don't think this necessarily needs to be panic stations, right? I don't think we need to be running to whatever outlet our favorite one is online and going, they're screwed, they've lost Swerve, Ospreay, Omega is a part-timer these days. Oh, look at all these people on the injury list. Whoa, slow down. Yes, there are a lot of big names injured at the moment, but what if AEW uses the gaps created by these absentees to elevate some new people who are already really over, who are already commanding immense crowd reactions in these buildings, in these arenas, who are already pushed at a level just below their popularity. How about we bring them up to that level and see what we can do and try something different and build some new stars in the absence of your Ospreays, of your Stricklands, and of everybody else on the injury list. I'm talking about AEW's folk heroes, ladies and gentlemen. The people in AEW whose push is way below their popularity, the people who command these natural, organics, real, emotional responses from crowds in the buildings every single time they come out. And I'm going to start with Brody King. Why not? He's a tag team champion. I don't think many people saw that coming at Forbidden Door. I think most people assumed that the Hurt Syndicate were going to retain, or FTR were going to win. But Bandito and Brody King won the tag team championships in that three-way match. He's been a trios champion before, so it's not exactly new territory for him. However, Brody is continually one of the most over people in this whole company. When he barks like a dog, everyone else in the building is doing the exact same thing. It's easy to understand why as well. He is an extremely fun hoss wrestler, right? He's a modern day powerhouse in that, yeah, he can do all the big, giant, powerful stuff, but he can also move around like a crazy demon from hell. He can hit the cannonball at 100 miles an hour. And because of that combination of size and speed, everything he does is that bit more impactful. But people really connect with this dude. And it is absolutely time for him to have a bigger slice of the AEW pie. That could be building the tag division around Bandito as working champions. That could be a singles push later in the year. Maybe he wins the TNT title. Maybe he wins the unified title. I don't know, something like that. It'll be a very appropriate role for a guy who compels thousands of adults to go, oh, every single time he comes out. He's awesome. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. There's a lot of personal bias here. And there is the same with the next one. Let's talk about Mark Briscoe as well. Another guy who commands immense sympathy and gets great reactions in the building. He's super over. He's one of the realest characters on the show. How can you not relate to Mark Briscoe? It goes way beyond, wrestling things as well. This guy is able to draw real sympathy in an artificial era, in an era where so much is like convoluted and a little bit, facsimiles of baby faces and heels sometimes in American wrestling these days, not just AEW. Mark Briscoe is a real dude. He's authentic as they come. And he's a great seller. He's a great bumper. He can get you on his side in an instant. When Mark Briscoe's in that ring, you live or die in his every move. I think that the program with him and MJF is obviously going to continue after Forbidden Door. Mark tried to get involved in the main event when MJF was trying to stooge his way into being world champion. That's going to continue, and it's a great way to elevate Mark. Look, I think that sometimes real, rugged, and raw personalities need to come to the forefront, and I believe that's what Brody King and Mark Briscoe most certainly are. Gonna swerve gears. That's not the term. Switch gears a little bit, right? I'm going to talk about Willow Nightingale as well, because while these injuries that we've just spoken about, right? Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, and Will Ospreay, they're not in the women's division of AEW. Why don't we take some of those minutes? Say Kenny or whoever's 5 minutes a week, right? Add them up and give them to Willow Nightingale a bit more and really make more of a concerted effort to push her in the women's division, because she is the most natural babyface in wrestling right now for my money. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The positivity, the fire, and everything that comes with those incredible traits. 2 traits, by the way, that cannot be taught. These are inherent within Willow Nightingale. And I think it's a shame that she's not quite had that defining run in AEW as of yet. I would be looking to build her, or Chris Statlander, but probably Willow because of the babyface stuff, as the person to topple a Mercedes Moné or a Toni Storm. Tony's a face as well, obviously, but you could easily do some kind of respectful storyline there. It doesn't need to be a blood feud in this instance. Look, I do believe that they will get to that point with Willow someday, because she is absolutely undeniable. But she's the coolest, she's the brightest and the most positive person on the roster in terms of her wrestling persona. She's a great wrestler, she can talk, she's got the character, she doesn't lack anything at all. I think that at the moment there is a bit of a problem. You know, AEW's women's division is full of talented people, and Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné have been tremendous figureheads. Same with Athena with the Ring of Honor women's title. There is a bit of an issue, I think, when it comes to mobility and people moving up. At the moment, there's not an obvious person to build or who is being built to dethrone a Mercedes or a Toni. And I think Willow Nightingale should really be in that role. But the last person I'm going to talk about is the definition of a modern wrestling folk hero. He's injured right now, but it sounds very much like he's on his way back. In fact, in the last video I watched, where he was training with Cesar Bononi, who helps so many wrestlers get in tremendous shape and get back to the level where they're able to wrestle again after these problems. Shout outs to Cesar. I think he's one of the unsung heroes of wrestling these days. But in his last video with Cesar Bononi, we had Eddie Kingston, my man, saying that he feels like he's ready. And Cesar said if it was up to me, you'd be cleared. Now, obviously, the doctors have to give him the okay. Tony Khan needs to come up with a storyline or whatever to bring him back. But I really do think that his return is imminent. And I also think that it's going to be one of the biggest things that happens in AEW this year. I think that when that music hits and he comes down, the crowd is going to just blow the roof of... I mean, even if somehow it's in a stadium, the whole thing will just collapse. I think they're going to make so much noise when Eddie Kingston comes back. He's been gone for over a year. And he's, for me, the best talker in wrestling. He's, again, I'm going to use words I used earlier. Raw, rugged, real, authentic. That's Eddie to a T. There is so much money to be made in a glory run towards the world title for Eddie Kingston. I know he's had the Ring of Honor belt. I know he's had the Continental and the New Japan Strong. I'm talking about the big one here. The big belt. One day, Hangman Page is going to lose that belt. He should lose it to a heel. Maybe MJF. Maybe someone else. That heel should then lose it, in my view, to Eddie Kingston, who should hold it for a very short period of time. A really cruel, brutal glory run ended by some tomfoolery after a few weeks. But he should win it, because I think this will move people to tears. Eddie Kingston connects with people on a visceral, emotional level. There's not many wrestlers who have that specific form of connection with a crowd. Mark Briscoe, Brody King, Willow Nightingale, they all have it too. I think that Eddie is the king at that level. I think he is the best possible example of somebody who's forged that. And he's done it by being himself. He's not done it because you get the impression he's playing a character on TV. I'm sure he amplifies many personal traits of his and exaggerates a bunch into his pro wrestling persona. But when Eddie Kingston comes out, you feel like there's very little line between the man and the performance. That's very, very difficult to do in this era of everybody knowing anything and social media telling all the secrets and all of this stuff. He's the man, he's the god. He can wrestle as well as he can talk. I don't think he was being given enough live promo time at the time he got injured in the months leading up to that, pardon me. That's a mistake to rectify for sure. But in the absence of these super athletic, hyper heroic, kind of comic book, flashy, awesome wrestlers, I'm not criticizing them at all. They are the state of the art. Swerve, Strickland, Will Ospreay. They're awesome. But in the absence of those wrestlers, why not use this as an opportunity to push a different kind of babyface? Why not use it as a chance to see what you can do with a Brody King, with a Mark Briscoe, with a Willow Nightingale, with an Eddie Kingston? I think there's a great opportunity here. And I think that if AEW can capitalize on that, then the next few months in that company could be extremely fun and engaging and rewarding for the viewers and the people in the building who have formed these emotional connections with these characters and now may get the opportunity to see them pushed at a level that matches their popularity. It sucks that people are injured. I wish them all the best. Let's try and take this pile of lemons and make some delicious lemonade. See you later.